Bear cub got stuck in elevator shaft. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The sleepy town of Pine Ridge sat nestled between rolling mountains and dense forest, where the boundary between wilderness and civilization blurred. Maple View Apartments stood at the very edge of town, its weathered brick exterior a stark contrast to the lush greenery that surrounded it. Inside apartment 302, 9-month-old Lily Reynolds cooed softly as she played with colorful wooden blocks on a quilted blanket. Her chubby fingers knocked over towers, only to rebuild them with determined concentration, her innocent giggles filling the cozy living room. Lily's mother, Olivia Reynolds, a tired-eyed nurse working the night shift at Pine Ridge General, dozed lightly on the sofa nearby. The rhythmic ticking of the wall clock and the occasional creaking of the old elevator shaft that ran alongside their apartment had become soothing background noise for both mother and daughter. Outside, as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a young black bear cub separated from its mother. The little cub, barely 4 months old with soft fuzzy fur and curious eyes, wandered through the thick undergrowth, following enticing scents that led it away from the safety of the forest. Its tiny nose twitched as it detected something particularly appealing, the sweet aroma of garbage from the dumpsters behind Maple View Apartments. The cub's paws patted softly on the ground as it moved cautiously toward the building. Its mother had always warned it about venturing too close to human dwellings, but hunger and curiosity proved stronger than caution. The maintenance door at the back of the building had been propped open with a brick, allowing easy access for the building's handyman, Frank Burton, who had stepped away to take a phone call. The little cub sniffed around the entrance, whiskers twitching with anticipation. It squeezed through the gap and found itself in a dimly lit corridor filled with strange scents and unfamiliar sounds. The cub's heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement as it explored this new territory, unaware of the danger that lay ahead. Meanwhile, back in apartment 302, Lily had grown restless. She crawled to the edge of her playmat, drawn by a strange sound that seemed different from the usual building noises. It was a soft whimpering, something primal that resonated with the baby's instincts. She tilted her head, listening intently as her mother's soft snores continued uninterrupted. Down in the basement, the bear cub investigated the strange metallic doors of the elevator. The scent of food lingered here, perhaps from groceries carried by residents. Its curiosity piqued, the cub nosed around the edges of the elevator doors. Unbeknownst to the young animal, Frank had also left open the maintenance hatch to the elevator shaft, intending to return shortly to oil the elevator mechanisms. The cub's exploration led it to this opening, and with one misstep, it tumbled into the dark elevator shaft. Its frightened yelp echoed through the metal chamber as it fell several feet before landing on a narrow ledge designed to catch debris. The cub scrambled frantically, tiny claws scrabbling against the slick metal walls, unable to climb back up. Its whimpers grew more desperate, the sounds traveling up the shaft and through the thin walls of the aging apartment building. In apartment 302, Lily became increasingly agitated. She pushed herself up onto her hands and knees, rocking back and forth with determination. With surprising speed, she crawled toward the apartment door, which Olivia had left slightly ajar to circulate fresh air in the stuffy apartment. The baby's instincts pulled her toward the strange sounds, a connection forming between her innocent heart and the frightened animal. Outside in the forest, the mother bear had realized her cub was missing. She raised her snout to the air, catching her baby's scent leading toward the human settlement. A low, worried growl rumbled in her chest as she began following the trail, her protective instincts driving her toward Mapleview Apartments and her trapped cub. As night fell fully over Pine Ridge, 3 lives were set on a collision course: a helpless bear cub trapped in darkness, a curious baby drawn by compassion she couldn't yet comprehend, and a mother bear approaching with single-minded determination to find her lost child. The elevator shaft darkened as night settled over Pine Ridge. The bear cub's cries grew more frantic, its tiny body shivering with fear and cold on the metal ledge. The cub's black fur was barely visible in the darkness, only its glistening eyes catching occasional gleams of light from cracks between the elevator doors on various floors. In apartment 302, Lily had reached the door. Her small fingers gripped the bottom edge, pulling herself forward with surprising strength for a 9-month-old. The door swung open wider, revealing the dimly lit hallway beyond. The baby paused, blinking at the unfamiliar territory, but the pitiful sounds from the elevator shaft drew her onward. She crawled across the threshold, her yellow onesie bright against the faded hallway carpet. Olivia stirred on the couch, her maternal instincts sensing something amiss even in sleep. Her eyelids fluttered, but exhaustion pulled her back under before she fully woke. Her night shifts had left her perpetually tired, and her body desperately clung to any rest it could get. Frank Burton, the maintenance man, ended his phone call with a heavy sigh. His sister's health was deteriorating, and the news wasn't good. Distracted by worry, he headed back inside, completely forgetting about the open maintenance hatch in the elevator shaft. His mind was elsewhere as he walked past the basement level, not noticing the soft whimpers coming from below the elevator. On the 3rd floor, Lily continued her determined journey down the hallway, drawn by sounds only she seemed to notice. Mrs. Gardner sank to her knees, one hand pressed against her chest. "A miracle," she whispered. "I've lived 78 years and I've never seen anything like it." Dawn broke over Pine Ridge, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. The events at Mapleview Apartments had spread through the small town like wildfire, drawing crowds of curious onlookers, news vans with satellite dishes, and wildlife officials who combed the perimeter of the building, taking photographs and measurements of paw prints in the soft earth. Inside apartment 302, Olivia sat on the edge of her bed, arm wrapped in a professional sling provided by the paramedics who had insisted on examining her shoulder. The diagnosis was a mild sprain, painful, but it would heal with time and rest. Lily played contentedly in her crib, seemingly unaffected by the previous night's events, occasionally looking up at her mother with that same mysterious gaze that had guided them through the crisis. A soft knock on the door drew Olivia's attention. She winced as she stood, careful not to jostle her injured shoulder, and made her way to the entrance. Frank Burton stood in the hallway, looking haggard but relieved, his maintenance uniform wrinkled from the long night. "How's the shoulder?" he asked, nodding toward her sling. "It'll heal," Olivia replied, stepping back to invite him in. "Any news on the bears?" Frank nodded, accepting the invitation and stepping into the apartment. He smiled at Lily, who babbled happily in response. Wildlife Services tracked them back into the forest. The family unit is intact, mother, cub, and the male. They're monitoring, but it looks like they've returned to their natural patterns. He hesitated. "They want to interview you. The wildlife officials, I mean. And the news people are clamoring for the story. Baby and bear cub, the miracle at Mapleview, they're calling it." Olivia sighed, sinking onto the couch. "I'm not sure what to tell them. I'm not sure I understand what happened myself." "You saved that cub's life," Frank said simply. "Without you and your little one there." He trailed off, the alternative too grim to voice. A silence fell between them, comfortable yet weighted with the extraordinary nature of what they had witnessed. "There's something else," Frank said finally, his expression turning serious. "Mr. Harrelson, the building owner, is flying in this afternoon. The damage to the elevator in the 4th floor is extensive. There's talk of—" He hesitated. "Well, he's talking about turning this whole thing into an opportunity, renovating the building, raising rents, using the story for publicity." Olivia felt her heart sink. She had moved to Pine Ridge 3 years ago, after Lily's father had abandoned them upon learning of the pregnancy. The modest rent at Maple View had been a lifeline, allowing her to work part-time at the hospital while caring for her daughter. "I can't afford a rent increase," she admitted quietly. "Not on my nurse's salary, not with childcare costs." Frank nodded in understanding. "A lot of folks here are in the same boat. Mrs. Gardner, the Rodriguez family on the 2nd floor, old Mr. Chen in 105. This place has been a haven for people who need affordable housing." Their conversation was interrupted by another knock, more assertive this time. Olivia opened the door to find a woman in a crisp business suit, her red hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, a tablet clutched in her manicured hands. "Olivia Reynolds?" The woman didn't wait for confirmation before continuing. "Vanessa Sharp, Pine Ridge Gazette. I understand you're the hero nurse who saved the bear cub last night, with your baby somehow involved." Her gaze shifted to Lily in her crib, a calculating look that made Olivia instinctively move to block her view. "I'm not giving interviews right now," Olivia said firmly. "My daughter and I need rest." Vanessa's professional smile didn't waver. "Of course, I completely understand. But you should know that this story is going national. Good Morning America is already interested. There's talk of a book deal, maybe even a movie. Your little one could be famous, the baby who talks to bears." She held out a business card. "When you're ready to tell your story, and believe me, someone will tell it. I hope you'll call me first." Olivia reluctantly took the card, if only to end the conversation faster. "Thank you, but not now, please." After Vanessa finally retreated, Olivia closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. "Famous? Movies? What are they thinking? We just did what anyone would do." Frank shook his head. "Not anyone would have climbed into an elevator shaft to save a bear cub, especially not with the mother bear tearing the building apart." He glanced at Lily with something like reverence. "And what your little one did, that connection she had with the bears, that's something special. People are going to be curious. They're going to want explanations." Olivia moved to the crib, gently stroking Lily's soft hair. "I don't have explanations. I just know my daughter somehow sensed something none of us adults could." She looked up at Frank, her expression troubled. What if this attention isn't good for her? What if people start seeing her as some kind of phenomenon instead of just a little girl? Before Frank could respond, Olivia's phone rang. The hospital administrator's name flashed on the screen. With a sigh, she answered. "Olivia? It's Margaret from HR. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Are you all right? We've been hearing the most extraordinary stories about what happened at your building last night." "I'm fine, Margaret. Just a sprained shoulder. I was going to call about my shift tonight." "Oh, don't worry about that," Margaret interrupted. "We've already arranged coverage, but that's not why I'm calling. Dr. Lawson wants to meet with you, today, if possible." Dr. Eleanor Lawson was the hospital's chief administrator, a woman Olivia had only encountered a handful of times at staff meetings. A summons to her office was unusual, to say the least. "What about?" Olivia asked, confusion and a touch of anxiety coloring her voice. "She didn't say specifically," Margaret replied, her tone careful. "But it has something to do with a research project the hospital is considering. And, this is off the record, it seems related to what happened with you and your daughter last night." Olivia's unease deepened. How would Dr. Lawson even know about that already? Margaret's pause spoke volumes. News travels fast in Pine Ridge. And Dr. Lawson has connections with the University Wildlife Research Department. She was on the phone with them first thing this morning. After ending the call, Olivia relayed the conversation to Frank, her concern evident. It's starting already. The attention, the questions, people wanting something from us. Frank's weathered face creased in thought. Maybe it's not all bad. If this Dr. Lawson has connections, maybe she could help protect you and Lily from all the media circus. Give you some space while things die down. A commotion in the hallway drew their attention, raised voices, one of which Olivia recognized as Mrs. Gardner's, usually so soft-spoken. You cannot just barge in and make these kinds of announcements, the elderly woman was saying, her voice trembling with indignation. People live here. We have rights. Olivia and Frank exchanged worried glances before heading to the door. In the hallway, Mrs. Gardner stood facing a tall man in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his expression one of practiced patience tinged with condescension. Mrs. Gardner, I understand your concerns, the man was saying in a placating tone. But the damage assessment is clear. The building needs extensive renovations. Renovations that, quite frankly, are long overdue. This unfortunate incident with the bears has simply accelerated the inevitable. Mr. Harrelson, I presume. Frank stepped forward, extending his hand to the building owner. I didn't expect you until this afternoon. Harrelson gave Frank's hand a cursory shake, his gaze sweeping past to land on Olivia and then, with particular interest, on the doorway where Lily could be seen playing in her crib. Ah, Miss Reynolds, he said, his voice taking on a warmer tone. Just the person I was hoping to see. The hero of the hour, from what I hear. He stepped toward her, hand outstretched, but Olivia did not take it. What's this about renovations? She asked directly. And why is Mrs. Gardner upset? Harrelson's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Simply a matter of necessary improvements. The building is old, the systems outdated. Last night's incident revealed structural weaknesses that need addressing. I've informed the residents that we'll need to vacate the building for approximately 3 months while work is completed. Vacate? Olivia repeated, disbelief coloring her voice. Where are people supposed to go for 3 months? Many of us live paycheck to paycheck. Insurance will cover some temporary housing costs, Harrelson replied smoothly. And those who wish to return after renovations will have first right of refusal on the units, at the new market rate, of course. Which will be how much higher than current rents? Frank asked, his voice hard. Harrelson spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. The market dictates prices, not me, but I assure you the improvements will be worth it. His gaze returned to Olivia's doorway. I understand your daughter played a rather unusual role in last night's events. The Bear Whisperer, some are calling her. The proprietary tone in his voice when speaking about Lily sent a chill down Olivia's spine. My daughter is 9 months old, Mr. Harrelson. She's not a sideshow attraction. Of course not, he agreed quickly. But you must admit there's something special there, something marketable. He reached into his jacket and produced a business card of his own. Thicker, more luxurious than Vanessa Sharp's. I have connections beyond real estate, Miss Reynolds. Media, entertainment, research institutions. What happened here could be leveraged to benefit everyone, including you and your daughter. Financially speaking, this could secure Lily's future. Olivia stared at the card but made no move to take it. Something in Harrelson's interest felt predatory rather than helpful, his eyes calculating as they moved between her and Lily. Mrs. Gardner stepped closer to Olivia, her thin arm slipping supportively around the younger woman's waist. "We're not interested in being leveraged, Douglas," she said, addressing the building owner with surprising familiarity, "nor in being evicted for your renovations." Harrelson's facade of friendliness slipped for a moment, revealing something harder beneath. "Evelyn, we've known each other too long for this sort of sentiment. Business is business. The world is already beating a path to this building's door because of what happened. I'd be a fool not to capitalize on it." A small sound from the apartment doorway drew everyone's attention. Lily had pulled herself up to standing, gripping the edge of her crib, her wide eyes focused not on the adults but on something beyond them, toward the end of the hallway where it intersected with the stairwell. All 4 adults turned to follow her gaze. There, standing perfectly still with one foot poised to take a step, was a man none of them recognized. Tall and lean, with deeply tanned skin and silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a ponytail, he wore worn jeans and a flannel shirt. Most striking, however, was the tribal tattoo that curved from his jawline down his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. "Who are you?" Harrelson demanded, his authoritative voice echoing in the hallway. "This building is closed to visitors." The stranger didn't respond to Harrelson. Instead, his dark eyes remained fixed on Lily, who had begun making the same soft cooing sound she had used with the bear cub. A slow smile spread across the man's weathered face. "The child who speaks with bears," he said finally, his voice deep and melodic, carrying a hint of an accent Olivia couldn't place. Word travels fast through the old networks. He took a step forward, and Harrelson instinctively stepped back, though the stranger projected no menace. "My name is Joseph Blackfoot," the man said, finally addressing the adults. "I'm a wildlife biologist with the university, also an elder with the Anishinaabe tribe." His gaze returned to Lily. "And I believe I may have some answers about what happened here last night, and why this little one was at the center of it all." The air in the hallway seemed to thicken with tension and possibility. Olivia felt a strange, prickling sensation at the back of her neck, a feeling of standing at a crossroads. Whatever this man knew, or thought he knew, about Lily could change everything. Before anyone could respond, the building's fire alarm erupted in a deafening wail. Frank's radio crackled to life, the security guard's panicked voice barely audible over the alarm. "Fire! East Wing, 2nd floor! Everyone out now!" Smoke began to drift up the stairwell, and the faint sound of crackling flames could be heard beneath the alarm's insistent scream. Harrelson's face paled. This building is wood-framed. If the fire reaches the central supports— "Everyone out!" Frank shouted, his maintenance training taking over, down the far stairwell away from the East Wing. Olivia darted back into her apartment, scooping Lily from her crib with her good arm. The baby seemed eerily calm despite the chaos, her gaze still fixed on Joseph Blackfoot. As they rushed toward the emergency exit, Olivia's mind raced. First bears, now fire, and in the midst of it all, strangers appearing with interest in her daughter that ranged from exploitative to enigmatic. One thing was becoming increasingly clear. Life at Mapleview Apartments would never be the same again, and neither, perhaps, would Lily's future. The evacuation of Mapleview Apartments unfolded with surprising efficiency, considering the chaos of the previous night had left many residents already on edge. Frank Burton led the way, directing people toward the west stairwell, his voice a steady anchor amid the panic. Mrs. Gardner moved with unexpected agility for her age, helping a young pregnant woman from the 4th floor who was struggling with the stairs. Olivia clutched Lily tightly against her chest, ignoring the pain in her injured shoulder. The baby remained unnaturally calm, her eyes tracking Joseph Blackfoot, who stayed close behind them as they descended. "This is no coincidence," he said quietly to Olivia, his voice barely audible above the alarm. "First bears, now fire. The natural world is responding to her." He nodded toward Lily. "What are you talking about?" Olivia demanded, pausing briefly on a landing to look at him. "Are you saying my daughter somehow caused this?" "Not caused," Joseph corrected, his expression serious. "Attracted, there is a difference." Further conversation was impossible as they reached the ground floor, where firefighters in full gear were rushing in, hoses dragging behind them. Outside, residents gathered in the parking lot at a safe distance, watching as smoke billowed from a second-floor window on the east side of the building. Harrelson moved through the crowd, his expensive suit now rumpled, phone pressed to his ear as he argued with someone. His insurance company, from the snippets Olivia overheard. "Where did the fire start?" she asked Frank, who had rejoined them after ensuring all residents were accounted for. "Electrical panel in the east wing," he replied grimly. "Old wiring. I've been telling Harrelson for years it needed updating." He glanced at the building owner with barely concealed resentment. "Guess he'll have to do those renovations now, whether he was planning them or not." Joseph Blackfoot stood slightly apart from the crowd, his gaze alternating between the burning building and Lily in Olivia's arms. There was something in his expression, not fear or confusion like the other onlookers, but a deep, knowing concern that made Olivia's unease grow. A glossy black SUV pulled into the parking lot, stopping just beyond the fire trucks. A woman emerged, tall, elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Even at a distance, her authority was palpable. Several people in white coats followed her, carrying equipment cases. "Dr. Lawson," Olivia murmured, recognizing the hospital administrator. The woman scanned the crowd until her gaze landed on Olivia and Lily. She began walking toward them with purposeful strides, her team following in her wake. Joseph Blackfoot stepped closer to Olivia, his voice low and urgent. "Be careful what you tell them. They will want to study her, but they do not understand what they are dealing with." "And you do," Olivia challenged, her maternal instincts flaring defensively. "I understand enough to know that your daughter has awakened something ancient," he replied. "Something that has been sleeping in these mountains for generations." Before Olivia could demand clarification, Dr. Lawson reached them, her professional smile not quite reaching her keen eyes. "Ms. Reynolds, I'm Dr. Eleanor Lawson, Chief Administrator at Pine Ridge General." She extended her hand, which Olivia reluctantly shook with her uninjured arm. "I'm glad to see you and your daughter are safe. What an extraordinary 24 hours you've had." "That's one way to put it," Olivia replied cautiously. Dr. Lawson's gaze shifted to Joseph Blackfoot, a flicker of recognition and what might have been annoyance crossing her features. "Professor Blackfoot, I should have expected to find you here. Wildlife ecology isn't enough anymore? Branching into structural fires now?" "The patterns speak for themselves, Eleanor," Joseph replied, his tone suggesting an old, unresolved disagreement. "You can collect your data, run your tests, but without the cultural context, you'll miss what's really happening." Dr. Lawson's smile tightened. "We'll let peer-reviewed science determine what's really happening, shall we?" She turned back to Olivia. "Ms. Reynolds, I'd like to propose something that might sound unusual, but could be beneficial for everyone involved." Lily chose that moment to make a soft sound, reaching her small hand toward the burning building. All eyes followed her gesture, just in time to see a remarkable sight. Through the smoke and flames visible in one window, a bird appeared. Not just any bird, but a great horned owl, a species rarely seen in daylight. It soared from the burning building, circled once overhead, then flew toward the forest, disappearing among the trees. A hush fell over the immediate group. Even Dr. Lawson seemed momentarily speechless. "That," Joseph Blackfoot said into the silence, "is what I'm talking about." Dr. Lawson recovered quickly, her scientific mind already formulating explanations. The fire likely flushed the owl from a roost in the building. Nothing mysterious about wildlife fleeing danger. "In broad daylight?" Joseph challenged. "And you didn't notice how it looked directly at the child before flying away?" "I'm more concerned with getting these people proper medical attention and shelter," Dr. Lawson replied dismissively. She gestured to her team, who had set up a makeshift triage area at the edge of the parking lot. "Miss Reynolds, if you and Lily would come with me, we'd like to check you both over. That shoulder looks painful." Olivia hesitated, torn between her natural trust in medical professionals and the growing sense that something beyond ordinary explanation was unfolding around her daughter. Joseph seemed to sense her conflict. "Whatever you decide," he said quietly, "remember that some things cannot be measured by instruments or explained by modern science alone." He pressed something into her hand, a small, smooth stone etched with an unfamiliar symbol. "If you want to understand what's happening with Lily, come to the Cultural Center at the university. Ask for me." With that, he stepped back, melting into the crowd of onlookers with surprising ease for such a distinctive figure. Dr. Lawson watched him go with narrowed eyes before returning her attention to Olivia. "Professor Blackfoot is well respected in his field, but he has some unconventional beliefs that color his scientific judgment." She nodded toward the stone in Olivia's hand. "I hope you won't let superstition interfere with getting Lily the best care possible." Something in her tone made Olivia instinctively close her fingers around the stone. "And what care would that be exactly?" "Lily isn't sick." "Of course not," Dr. Lawson agreed smoothly. "But she may have experienced something quite remarkable, something worth understanding. The hospital has partnered with the university on a study of intuitive communication between humans and wildlife. What happened between Lily and those bears could represent a significant case study." "You want to study my daughter?" Olivia couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "With your full involvement and consent," Dr. Lawson assured her. "We've prepared temporary housing for affected residents at the University Conference Center. For you and Lily, we could offer a private suite in the research wing. Comfortable, secure, and with medical staff available for your shoulder. In return, we'd simply ask for some observation sessions with Lily. Non-invasive, of course." The offer was tempting in its practicality. Olivia had been wondering where they would go, with the apartment now uninhabitable. Her meager savings wouldn't cover extended hotel stays, and her parents lived 3 states away. Before she could respond, a commotion near the fire trucks caught everyone's attention. A firefighter emerged from the building carrying something small and dark in his gloved hands. As he approached the chief, Olivia could see it was some kind of animal. A raccoon kit, its tiny body limp from smoke inhalation. Without warning, Lily began squirming vigorously in Olivia's arms, making the same distinctive cooing sounds she had made with the bear cub. Her small hands reached toward the injured raccoon with unmistakable urgency. "Fascinating," Dr. Lawson murmured, signaling to one of her team, who began recording the interaction on a tablet. The firefighter, hearing Lily's sounds, looked over in confusion. Something about the baby's intensity made him change direction, walking toward them instead of to his chief. "She seems upset about this little fella," he said, holding out the raccoon kit. "Found him trapped in a closet, barely breathing." To everyone's surprise, Lily leaned forward, still making those soft, rhythmic sounds. Her tiny fingers stretched toward the raccoon but didn't quite touch it. And then, before their astonished eyes, the kit stirred. Its small chest rose in a more substantial breath, and its eyes fluttered open. "Well, I'll be damned," the firefighter whispered. The raccoon kit was now clearly reviving, its small paws beginning to move as it regained consciousness. Dr. Lawson's professional composure slipped for a moment, genuine wonder crossing her features before being replaced by intense scientific curiosity. She snapped her fingers at her team, who scrambled to document what was happening. Olivia felt a wave of protective fear wash over her. This was too much, too public. Whatever was happening with Lily, whatever gift or connection she possessed, it was becoming a spectacle. And spectacles, she knew all too well, could be exploited. The raccoon kit was now fully awake, looking directly at Lily with an intelligence that seemed beyond normal animal awareness. It made a chittering sound that somehow seemed to respond to Lily's coos. Harrelson had noticed the gathering and pushed his way through the small crowd. "What's happening here?" he demanded, then stopped short when he saw the revived raccoon. His gaze darted between the animal and Lily, the calculating look returning to his eyes. "Remarkable," he murmured. "Simply remarkable. The weight of all these interested gazes, scientific, exploitative, curious, suddenly felt suffocating." Olivia stepped back, pulling Lily closer to her chest. "We need some space," she said firmly. "My daughter is not a research subject or an attraction." Dr. Lawson made a placating gesture. "Of course, this isn't the place for a detailed discussion, but please consider our offer of accommodation. At the very least, let us help with your shoulder." A commotion at the perimeter of the crowd provided a welcome distraction. A police officer was trying to restrain a familiar figure, Vanessa Sharp from the Pine Ridge Gazette, her red ponytail disheveled as she attempted to push past the barrier, camera in hand. "The public has a right to know what's happening," she was shouting. "Is it true a baby is communicating with animals? Is it connected to the fire?" Olivia felt a surge of panic. The situation was spiraling beyond her control. She needed to get Lily away from these prying eyes, these grasping interests. She needed time to think, to understand what was happening to her daughter. A gentle hand touched her elbow. Mrs. Gardner had appeared beside her, her kind eyes understanding. "Come with me, dear," the elderly woman said softly. "My sister has a cabin by the lake. It's small, but private. No one will bother you there while you sort things out." The offer was like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. Olivia nodded gratefully, allowing Mrs. Gardner to guide her away from the crowd, away from Dr. Lawson's scrutiny and Harrelson's calculating gaze. As they slipped away, Olivia caught a glimpse of Joseph Blackfoot standing at the edge of the forest. He nodded once, as if approving her choice to retreat, then turned and disappeared among the trees. What had he meant about Lily awakening something ancient? And why did she have the unsettling feeling that the bears and the fire were only the beginning? The stone he had given her felt warm against her palm, almost as if it were alive. And Lily, now calmer since they'd moved away from the crowd, looked back over Olivia's shoulder toward the forest with an expression that seemed impossibly knowing for a 9-month-old child. Whatever was happening, one thing was becoming increasingly clear. Lily was at the center of forces Olivia didn't understand, forces that others were already moving to control, study, or exploit. As her mother, Olivia's only certainty was that she would protect her daughter, whatever it took, even if it meant accepting that her ordinary life as a nurse and single mother had been irrevocably transformed by whatever extraordinary connection Lily shared with the natural world around them. The cabin hugged the edge of Pine Lake like an afterthought. its weathered wooden planks and slightly crooked porch speaking of decades withstanding mountain winters. Inside, however, the space was surprisingly cozy. A main room with a stone fireplace, small kitchen area, and 2 snug bedrooms toward the back. My sister Martha comes up for a month each summer, Mrs. Gardner explained as she showed Olivia around. The rest of the year it sits empty, except for the occasional weekend visit. You and Lily are welcome to stay as long as you need. I can't thank you enough, Olivia said, settling Lily on a patchwork quilt spread across the worn sofa. The baby immediately became interested in a carved wooden duck sitting on the coffee table, reaching for it with curious fingers. No thanks needed, dear. Mrs. Gardner busied herself with lighting the fireplace, her movements practiced despite her age. Martha and I both raised our children as single mothers. I know what it's like to feel the world pressing in when all you want is to protect your little one. Olivia sank onto the sofa beside Lily, the events of the past 24 hours catching up to her in a wave of exhaustion. I don't know what's happening, Mrs. Gardner. Lily has always been intuitive, I guess you could say, more aware than other babies her age, but this, the bears, the raccoon, it's beyond explanation. The elderly woman nodded, her face thoughtful as she watched Lily playing. My great-grandmother was what the old folks called a touched child, had a way with animals that defied explanation. Birds would land on her outstretched hand, wounded deer would approach her in the forest. She settled into a rocking chair across from them. The old stories say such children are born when the natural world needs to communicate with humans, when something important needs to be understood. Joseph Blackfoot said something similar, Olivia recalled, about Lily awakening something ancient. Mrs. Gardner's eyes sharpened with interest. The Anishinaabe have deep roots in these mountains. Their legends speak of spirit children who bridge the gap between human and animal worlds. Before dismissing such ideas, remember that 24 hours ago, you wouldn't have believed your daughter could calm a mother bear or revive an injured raccoon. The truth of this statement hung in the air between them. Olivia absently touched the stone Joseph had given her, still in her pocket. Its surface felt warmer than it should, almost as if responding to her thoughts. A soft knocking at the door startled them both. Mrs. Gardner rose to answer it, peering cautiously through the curtained window first. "It's Frank," she said with evident relief, opening the door to admit the maintenance man. He carried a duffel bag and a cardboard box, his face smudged with soot, but expression relieved to see them. "You disappeared from the scene," he said, setting down his burdens. "Smart move. It turned into a circus after you left. News crews, animal rights activists, even some self-proclaimed psychics showed up." He nodded toward the items he'd brought. "I managed to salvage some of your things from the apartment before they closed the building completely. Clothes for both of you, some of Lily's toys, your important documents from the lockbox you mentioned." "Thank you," Olivia said, deeply touched by his thoughtfulness amid the chaos. "How bad is the damage?" Frank's expression turned grim. "The east wing is a total loss. The rest has significant smoke and water damage. Harrelson's already talking about tearing the whole thing down rather than repairing it. Says it's more cost-effective to build new luxury units." His disgust was evident. "Most of us long-term residents won't be able to afford whatever he builds." "That's terrible," Mrs. Gardner said, her thin hands clenching in distress. "Some people have lived there for decades. Where will they go?" "That's the thing," Frank replied, lowering his voice as if worried about being overheard. "Harrelson's made arrangements with the university already. Temporary housing for residents while construction happens, but only for those who sign an agreement to participate in some kind of study. something about proximity effects to what happened with Lily and the bears. Olivia felt a chill run through her. Dr. Lawson mentioned a study. I didn't realize it would involve all the residents. Harrelson and Lawson seem awfully cozy, Frank confirmed. I overheard them talking about government grants, private investment. They're spinning what happened into some kind of research opportunity. Using people's housing vulnerability to pressure them into participating, Mrs. Gardner concluded, her voice tight with anger. Shameful. Frank nodded, then hesitated before continuing. There's more. They're specifically looking for you and Lily. Dr. Lawson has people checking hotels, relatives' homes. They're being very persistent. Olivia instinctively moved closer to Lily, who had abandoned the wooden duck and was now looking out the window toward the lake, unnaturally still for a baby her age. What exactly do they want from her? Olivia asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. From what I gathered, they believe Lily has some kind of unique neurological or genetic trait that allows her to communicate with animals, Frank explained. Dr. Lawson was talking about brain scans, genetic sequencing. All voluntary and safe, she kept emphasizing, but he trailed off, his concern evident. But once they have Lily in their facility, how voluntary would it really be? Olivia finished for him. The thought of her daughter subjected to tests and observations, treated as a scientific curiosity rather than a child, made her physically ill. Mrs. Gardner moved to the window, carefully pulling the curtains closed. This cabin doesn't appear on most maps, and Martha owns it under her maiden name. You should be safe here for a while. The question is, what's your next step? It was a good question, one Olivia hadn't had time to consider. Her job, their home, the life they'd built in Pine Ridge, everything had been upended in less than a day. As if sensing her mother's distress, Lily made a soft sound. She had abandoned her play and was looking directly at Olivia with an expression of such clear concern that it seemed impossible on a 9-month-old's face. It's okay, sweetie, Olivia assured her, though she didn't feel remotely okay herself. We'll figure this out. A fluttering at the window drew their attention. A cardinal had landed on the sill outside, its bright red feathers vivid against the weathered wood. It pecked gently at the glass, not in the random way birds sometimes do, but with a deliberate rhythm that seemed almost communicative. Lily immediately responded, making the same cooing sounds they had heard before with the bears and the raccoon. She pointed insistently at the window. Frank and Mrs. Gardner exchanged concerned glances. I think, Mrs. Gardner said slowly, that Lily is trying to tell us something. Or perhaps something is trying to communicate through her. The cardinal continued its rhythmic pecking, stopping only when Lily responded with her unusual sounds, creating an eerie call and response pattern that raised the hair on Olivia's arms. Frank moved cautiously to the window and pulled back the curtain slightly. There's more of them, he reported, surprise evident in his voice. The whole tree line, dozens of birds, and look at the lake shore. Olivia joined him at the window, Lily in her arms. What she saw took her breath away. Along the water's edge, animals had gathered in a scene that defied rational explanation. A family of deer stood motionless, their large eyes fixed on the cabin. 2 foxes sat nearby, unusually close to natural prey they would normally hunt. At the lake's edge, a great blue heron stood sentinel-like, while smaller creatures, raccoons, squirrels, and rabbits, formed an improbable congregation. They're waiting, Mrs. Gardner whispered, her voice filled with awe. For her. As if confirming this assessment, Lily squirmed in Olivia's arms, reaching toward the door with unmistakable intent. She wants to go outside, Olivia realized, fear and wonder battling within her. Frank placed a protective hand on the doorknob. Are you sure that's safe? We don't know what's happening here. Olivia looked down at her daughter, this miraculous child who had somehow formed a connection with the natural world that defied explanation. In Lily's eyes, she saw no fear, only a serene certainty that sparked courage in her own heart. I think, Olivia said slowly, that we're meant to trust her. Whatever this is, Lily is at the center of it, and I don't think she's in danger. Mrs. Gardner nodded solemnly. The animals aren't here to harm her. They're here to acknowledge her. Decision made, Olivia nodded to Frank, who reluctantly opened the door. Cool evening air swept in, carrying the scents of pine and lake water. Lily made a sound of delight as Olivia carried her onto the porch, her small body practically vibrating with excitement. The gathered animals remained still, watching. None showed aggression or fear, only a focused attention that seemed impossible among so many different species. What now? Frank whispered, staying close as if ready to snatch them back to safety at the first sign of trouble. His question was answered in an unexpected way. From within the forest emerged a familiar figure, Joseph Blackfoot, moving with quiet confidence between the deer and foxes, who parted to allow his passage. Behind him came other figures, men and women of various ages, all with the distinctive features that marked them as Anishinaabe tribe members. I told you she had awakened something ancient, Joseph called as he approached, something that has been sleeping in these mountains for generations. He stopped at the foot of the porch steps, respect evident in his posture. May we speak with you and the child? Olivia hesitated only briefly before nodding. Joseph and 3 elders, 2 women and 1 man, all with silver hair and faces lined with wisdom, ascended the steps. The rest of their group remained at a respectful distance, forming a loose semicircle near the gathered animals. This gathering of creatures has not been seen in our lands for 7 generations, said one of the elderly women, her eyes bright with unshed tears as she gazed at Lily. Not since the last awakening. What awakening? Olivia asked, instinctively holding Lily closer. What's happening to my daughter? Joseph smiled gently. Nothing is happening to her. This is who she has always been, who she was born to be. Among our people, she would be called Benesi Oshki Anishinaabe, Eagle's new person, a bridge between worlds. Once in many generations, the elderly man explained, when the balance between humans and the natural world reaches a critical point, a child is born with the gift of understanding all living things. Your daughter speaks the first language, the one all creatures knew before words divided us from our brothers and sisters in fur and feather. Lily, as if understanding, made her soft cooing sounds. Outside, the gathered animals shifted in what almost seemed like response. The bears were just the beginning, Joseph continued. The fire, that was no accident. The natural world is in crisis from human actions, and the ancient ways are stirring. Your daughter is a messenger, a translator. Through her, the animals seek to speak with us again. This is impossible, Frank murmured, though his eyes told a different story as he watched the unnatural gathering of wildlife below. Yesterday, you would have said a baby communicating with a bear was impossible, Mrs. Gardner reminded him gently. Yet we all witnessed it. The elderly woman who had spoken stepped forward, holding out gnarled hands. May I? She asked Olivia. After a moment's hesitation, Olivia nodded, allowing the woman to place her weathered hands on either side of Lily's face. The baby regarded her calmly, with none of the stranger anxiety typical of infants. She carries the old medicine, the woman confirmed after a moment, strong and pure, but she will need guidance, protection. Her piercing gaze met Olivia's. The world you know will try to study her, explain her, use her. They will not understand that some gifts are beyond their instruments and theories. The university, Dr. Lawson. They already want to examine her, Olivia acknowledged. Joseph nodded grimly. They would cage the wind to measure its speed, but what your daughter represents cannot be contained in laboratories. What am I supposed to do? Olivia asked, overwhelming emotion making her voice break. I'm just a nurse, a single mother. I don't know how to protect her from people who have power, resources. You are not alone, Joseph said simply, gesturing to his companions and the gathered animals beyond. The old ways are awakening throughout the world. Lily is but one of several children born with the ancient gifts, appearing now when Earth most needs translators between humanity and the natural world. He reached into a pouch at his belt and withdrew a small object, a pendant carved from bone, depicting an eagle with outstretched wings. This has been waiting for her. Our elders saw her coming in dreams years ago. Olivia stared at the pendant, realization dawning. The father of my child. He was just passing through town. I never saw him again after that one night. He had a tattoo. She gestured toward her collarbone. Joseph nodded, unsurprised. Michael Two Rivers, my cousin's son. He did not abandon you by choice. He was killed in a logging accident in Canada 2 weeks after meeting you. He never knew about Lily. The revelation staggered Olivia. All this time, she had believed Lily's father had simply walked away, unwilling to accept responsibility. To learn he had died, never knowing he had created a child, brought unexpected grief and closure in equal measure. Lily carries 2 blood lineages of animal speakers, the elderly man explained. Your family has the gift too, though diluted by time and forgetting. It strengthened when your bloodline joined with ours. Mrs. Gardner gasped softly. Your grandmother, the one who talked to birds. That's what you were telling me about earlier. My grandmother, Olivia echoed, struggling to process this connection. I barely knew her. The gift has been waiting, dormant in your family for generations, Joseph confirmed. In Lily, it has reawakened at full strength because the need is great. The balance between humans and nature has never been more precarious. Outside, as if to punctuate his words, the gathered animals began to disperse, not in panic or random directions, but in an ordered, purposeful manner that suggested communication beyond human understanding. They have delivered their message, the elderly woman said, watching them go. They know the child is acknowledged now, that she will be protected and guided. Protected how? Frank asked, practical concerns resurfacing. Harrelson, Dr. Lawson. They're already searching for Olivia and Lily. They have resources, influence. Joseph smiled, a hint of steel beneath the expression. So do we. The university stands on land protected by treaties that recognize tribal sovereignty. Our legal team has already filed injunctions preventing any forced testing or examination of a child with Anishinaabe heritage. As for Harrelson, his smile turned grim. Let's just say his development plans may encounter unexpected environmental review hurdles. Hope flickered in Olivia's chest for the first time since the chaos began. So, what happens now? That is for you to decide, Joseph replied. We offer sanctuary, teaching, community, but we do not demand. Lily's gift is hers to grow into, and yours is the guiding hand that will help shape how she uses it. The elderly man stepped forward. Our people have a retreat center deep in the national forest. There, Lily can develop her abilities safely, away from those who would exploit her. Other children with gifts are gathered there as well. She would not be alone in her uniqueness. "And you?" Joseph asked Olivia directly. "Our clinic at the retreat needs medical professionals. Your skills as a nurse would be valued." The offer hung in the air. A new path, unexpected but somehow right. Olivia looked down at Lily, who gazed back with those old soul eyes that had always seemed to know more than they should. "I think," Olivia said slowly, "that Lily has been trying to lead us somewhere all along. From the moment she crawled toward that elevator, she's been following a purpose none of us could see." Mrs. Gardner touched her arm gently. "Sometimes the smallest among us see the clearest path forward." Frank nodded his agreement. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Those corporate vultures won't get their hands on Lily, not if we can help it." As if sensing the decision forming in her mother's heart, Lily made a soft sound of contentment. At that exact moment, the cardinal that had been pecking at the window returned, landing on the porch railing with a bright trill that sounded almost like laughter. Lily responded with her special cooing, and to everyone's astonishment, the cardinal seemed to answer, its song changing to match the rhythm of the baby's sounds. "A conversation," Joseph observed quietly, "the first of many." Olivia felt something shift within her, fear giving way to wonder, doubt to determination. Whatever extraordinary path lay ahead, she would walk it beside her remarkable daughter, protecting her gift while helping her share it with a world desperately in need of reconnection with the natural world. Outside, the sun was setting over Pine Lake, painting the water in shades of gold and rose. In the gathering dusk, the boundary between the human world and the wild seemed to shimmer and dissolve, just as it had in the moment a baby had somehow understood the cry of a trapped bear cub. Something ancient was indeed awakening in these mountains, and Lily, with her innocent heart and extraordinary gift, would help guide the way forward, bridging worlds that had grown too far apart. "We'll go with you," Olivia said finally, her decision made. "Not because we're running away, but because Lily deserves to understand her gift, and the world deserves to receive it." Joseph smiled, genuine relief and joy in his expression. "The journey begins, then." He gently placed the eagle pendant around Lily's neck where it seemed to belong, as if completing a circuit long left open. In her mother's arms, Lily Reynolds, the baby who spoke with bears and awakened ancient connections, reached up to touch the pendant, her delighted laugh rippling across the lake. And from the forests beyond, carried on the evening breeze, came answering calls from countless wild throats, a chorus of welcome for the child who would help humans remember how to listen to the natural world once more. Gardner, from apartment 304, stepped out to collect her evening newspaper and gasped at the sight of the baby. "Oh my goodness. Lily, sweetheart, what are you doing out here all alone?" The elderly woman looked around for Olivia, concern etching deeper lines into her already wrinkled face. Lily babbled in response, pointing her chubby finger toward the elevator doors, then continued crawling in that direction. Mrs. Gardner hesitated, torn between following the baby and checking on Olivia. "Let me just make sure your mom is okay, little one," she murmured, knocking gently on the Reynolds apartment door. When no response came, she pushed it open slightly. "Olivia? Your little one's out in the hall." Olivia jolted awake, disorientation quickly giving way to panic. "Lily," she called, scanning the living room. The empty playmat sent her heart racing. She leapt to her feet, almost colliding with Mrs. Gardner in the doorway. "She's out by the elevator, dear," Mrs. Gardner explained, pointing down the hallway where Lily sat, patting the closed elevator doors with her tiny palms. "Oh God, thank you." Olivia rushed toward her daughter, relief and confusion mingling in her voice. As she approached, she noticed Lily's unusual behavior. The baby seemed transfixed by the elevator, pressing her ear against the metal doors. Meanwhile, outside the building, the mother bear had reached the perimeter of Mapleview Apartments. Her powerful sense of smell confirmed her cub was inside the strange human structure. She paced anxiously at the edge of the trees, instinct warring with fear of the unfamiliar territory. A low, mournful sound rumbled from her throat, a call to her lost baby. Inside the elevator shaft, the cub's ears perked up at the sound of its mother's distant call. It renewed its efforts to escape, scratching desperately at the walls, its cries growing louder. As Olivia reached down to pick up Lily, the elevator suddenly hummed to life. Someone on a lower floor had pressed the call button. The cables groaned, and the mechanism began to move. "What's that noise?" Mrs. Gardner asked, frowning as she joined Olivia and Lily by the elevator. "Doesn't sound right at all." It wasn't the usual sound of the elevator. Beneath the mechanical whirring came the unmistakable sound of a frightened animal. Lily squirmed in her mother's arms, reaching toward the elevator doors with unexpected urgency, her face scrunched in distress. "There's something in there," Olivia whispered, her nurse's training kicking in as she assessed the situation. "Something's trapped in the elevator shaft." The elevator continued its ascent, the machinery grinding closer to where the bear cub clung to its precarious perch. In the forest's edge, the mother bear heard her cub's cries intensify and made her decision. With powerful muscles bunching under her thick fur, she charged toward the back entrance of Mapleview Apartments, maternal instinct overriding all caution. Frank Burton, heading up to the second floor to check on a leaky faucet, froze as his walkie-talkie crackled. The night security guard's voice came through, tight with panic. "Frank, we've got a bear. A big one just entered through the back. Lock down whatever you can." As these words echoed through the building's communication system, the elevator came to a grinding halt between the second and third floors, its emergency system detecting an obstruction. The bear cub's cries reached a fever pitch, now clearly audible to everyone near the elevator shaft. Olivia clutched Lily tighter, her eyes meeting Mrs. Gardner's in shared realization. They were trapped in a building with a desperate mother bear, while her cub was stuck inside the walls. And somehow, impossibly, Lily had known it all along. "Everyone back in their apartments now." Frank's voice boomed through the hallway as he emerged from the stairwell, his face pale with panic. "We've got a situation." Olivia stood frozen, clutching Lily to her chest. The baby continued to fuss, stretching her arms toward the elevator doors, her small face contorted with an emotion too complex for her age. "What kind of situation?" Olivia asked, though the frantic animal cries from the elevator shaft answered her question before Frank could. "Mama Bear entered the building," Frank explained breathlessly, ushering them away from the elevator. "Security called animal control, but they're at least 30 minutes out. We need to get everyone to safety." Mrs. Gardner placed a trembling hand on her chest. "Lord, have mercy. What's it doing in the building?" As if in answer, a louder, more distinct cry came from the elevator shaft, the trapped cub calling for its mother. "There's a baby bear in there," Olivia whispered, the pieces falling into place. She looked down at Lily with newfound understanding. "That's what she's been trying to tell us." Frank's eyes widened as he peered at the elevator doors. In the shaft? How in the world? Realization dawned on his face. "The maintenance hatch. I left it open." Guilt washed over his features. "This is my fault." The building's ancient PA system crackled to life. The night security guard's voice strained as he made the announcement. "Attention all residents. Please remain in your apartments with doors locked. Do not, I repeat, do not enter the hallways or stairwells. We have a wildlife situation that is being handled." "A wildlife situation?" Mrs. Gardner echoed with a nervous laugh. That's one way to put it. More residents began peering out of their doors, curious about the commotion. Frank waved them back inside with urgent gestures. The cub must have fallen through the hatch, Frank explained quickly to Olivia. It's probably stuck on one of the debris shelves, and now Mama's come looking. A tremendous crash from the floor below made them all jump. The mother bear had found the stairwell. "We need to get that cub out," Olivia said decisively, surprising herself with her clarity amid the chaos. "It's the only way to get the mother to leave." Frank shook his head. "Too dangerous. We wait for animal control." "That could be too late," Olivia argued. "That elevator could start moving again any minute, and the mother bear won't leave without her baby." She looked down at Lily, who had gone strangely quiet, her eyes fixed on the elevator doors with an intensity that seemed impossible for an infant. "My daughter knew. Somehow she knew it was in there." From the stairwell came the sound of heavy paws on steps, punctuated by deep, rumbling growls. The mother bear was making her way up, following her cub's cries. Second-floor residents moved to the third floor now. The security guard's voice came through the PA again, panic evident despite his professional tone. "Use the far stairwell." The hallway erupted into controlled chaos as doors opened and residents hurried toward the emergency stairs at the opposite end of the building, casting fearful glances toward the main stairwell where the bear's growing sounds indicated her approach. Olivia made a split-second decision. "Mrs. Gardner, could you take Lily to your apartment? Lock the door and stay away from the hallway." The elderly woman nodded, though confusion lined her face. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to help Frank get that cub out." Olivia handed a reluctant Lily to Mrs. Gardner. The baby immediately began to wail, reaching back toward her mother in the elevator. "She doesn't usually do this with other people," Olivia apologized, kissing Lily's forehead. "I'll be right back, sweetheart, I promise." Frank stared at Olivia like she had lost her mind. "You can't be serious. We need to evacuate with the others." "You said yourself this is your fault," Olivia replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm a nurse. I know how to handle scared, hurt creatures. Between the two of us, we might have a chance to fix this before someone, human or bear, gets seriously injured." A loud crash from the stairwell indicated the mother bear had reached the second floor. Her growls grew louder, more frantic, as she followed her cub's cries to the elevator. "We don't have time to argue," Olivia insisted. "The service panel for the elevator controls, where is it?" Frank hesitated only a moment longer before his shoulders slumped in resignation. "Basement level. But we'd have to get past the bear to reach it." "Is there another way down?" "Maintenance tunnels? Anything?" Frank's eyes lit up. "The laundry chute. It connects to the basement. It's tight, but we could make it." As Mrs. Gardner hurried Lily toward the safety of her apartment, the baby's cries grew more insistent. She looked back over the elderly woman's shoulder, her teary eyes locked with her mother's, in a gaze that seemed to hold wisdom far beyond her months. For a fleeting moment, Olivia felt a wave of doubt. Was she making a terrible mistake? Putting herself in danger when her daughter needed her? But something in Lily's desperate reaching toward the elevator, something about the way she had known about the cub before any of them, it compelled Olivia forward. "Let's go," she told Frank, her decision made. As they rushed toward the laundry room at the end of the hall, the elevator doors on the second floor were being pried open by powerful claws. The mother bear had found where her cub's cries were coming from, but couldn't understand why the metal barriers wouldn't yield to her strength. In Mrs. Gardner's apartment, Lily suddenly stopped crying. She tilted her head as if listening to something only she could hear, then pointed to the window with surprising determination. "What is it, little one?" Mrs. Gardner asked, peering out at the gathering crowd of evacuated residents in the parking lot below, their upturned faces illuminated by the building's security lights. Lily babbled insistently, her small hands pressing against the glass, not looking at the people but at something else. Mrs. Gardner adjusted her glasses and followed the baby's gaze to the forest edge. There, emerging from the trees, was a second bear, larger than the first, with a distinctive white patch on its chest. "Oh, dear God," the elderly woman whispered. "It's not just a mother and cub. It's a family."